understand that everyone's indigenous from somewhere. Be proud of that.
Young and Indigenous Podcast is an outlet for people to know about Indigenous knowledge, storytelling, and history. Through our youthful journeys as Indigenous people, young people and elders share their experiences with us. Without them, we wouldn't be able to do this.
About to tell some red stories. Stay tuned. Yay, podcast!
Good morning. Yes, today we're talking about Indigenous Peoples Day, and it's a day that we try to take the opportunity, us as Indigenous people, to recognize each other for our shared history, our shared values, our shared way of being in this world, and celebrate that together.
What is Indigenous Peoples Day? Good question. I feel like as Indigenous people, we grew up in a colonial state where the narrative was controlled by the colonial side, the victor's side, if you will. Even though I don't see it as a clear victor, the opposition was there. And in that narrative, we celebrated a man who supposedly discovered the Americas, Christopher Columbus, 1492. However, there is hard facts and evidence that he is not the first European person to land in the Americas, and his glorification was mostly out of falsities to uphold a false narrative about the realities that occurred for Indigenous groups. And so today, in Indigenous Peoples Day, we get a chance to sort of take over that what was once a recent holiday and rebrand it and give it a new identity, one that we can be proud of and all Indigenous people can be proud of around the world, where this ideology of colonialism can be realized and we as Native people can be proud and tell our stories. So that's why Indigenous Peoples Day is important to me, and that's what it means. Of course, it's a lot bigger and broader than that for everyone, but from a quick definition, that's what I give you.
What do people need to know about Indigenous Peoples Day?
That for the most part, Indigenous Peoples Day is a recognition by those that are not part of that circle, that come from that way of life, to know and understand us, that we do, for instance, give thanks every day, not just on Thanksgiving, and that we share a lot, and that these things that we share are for each other to pass on to our children. So it's very important that people learn these things from Indigenous people.
Indigenous Peoples Day is a holiday that acknowledges the history and heritage of Indigenous peoples, challenges the narrative of Columbus Day, and promotes awareness and understanding of Indigenous issues. It's an occasion to celebrate and support Indigenous cultures and rights.
In this theme, Indigenous Peoples Day altogether, with everything I said, that's important to know, as well as many other values and norms being adjusted around Indigenous Peoples Day. I think what contemporary society could do to support and is to find Indigenous Day events, things occurring that bring Indigenous sciences, Indigenous stories, Indigenous histories to light and bring the truth, but also supporting the foundation that they're being told from an Indigenous perspective or an Indigenous lens. And so our theme for Indigenous Peoples Day at CSSP is going to be climate change and climate justice. And that's why our title is Signals from our Mother Earth. And what can our indigenuity, if you will, help in these endeavors. And so we're going to come together and get like-minded people together and have a focus on Indigenous people, but also the world changing, which impacts all Indigenous communities around the world.
The next question is, why is it important to celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day?
Well, it's really important to celebrate our way of life as an Indigenous people because who else is going to do that? One. Two, I think it's always good to set your work down and join together in peace and harmony to create a better understanding amongst all of us. So everybody, all peoples, should put their work aside and come join us.
Celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day is a way to honor, support, and stand in solidarity with Indigenous communities, recognizing our significance and diversity while addressing the challenges we continue to face.
Indigenous Peoples Day is important to celebrate because we're taking a group of people who haven't been acknowledged or celebrated, Indigenous people around the world, who have all been impacted by colonialism. And there's so much definitions and questions like what is colonialism? When did it start? Well, I'm not going to give that answer here, but I would contest that European colonialism has devastated the entire world and indigenous populations of their sciences and their connection with their lands. And we're taking these invasive methods to live on our lands, and we're practicing them worldwide. And that's why we're seeing the impacts, the negative impacts from Earth, and the disassociation with our natural beings and relatives is because we, as a group, as a society, have actively worked on separating the indigenous from our lifestyles. The very houses we live in the walls separate us from the outside. I think celebrating Indigenous people and indigenuity could bring revitalization and bring these practices back, but it also brings the ideology of appreciating the natural beings and the practices for the natural world in the territories that we live. So it does come down to a small local scale in global celebration of Indigenous people.
Okay, and then this last question is, how does Indigenous Peoples Day help our community?
Indigenous Peoples Day helps our community get together, and it is a cause to get together and put aside perhaps a lot of the anguish within our community, a lot of the struggles, and share a meal and listen to the good words of leaders from around the world. That what we do together is going to become more powerful. Our voices will be amplified and we will be heard.
Indigenous Peoples Day can help our community by promoting education, cultural enrichment, awareness, empathy, social justice, historical understanding, environmental consciousness, inclusivity, and unity. It contributes to building a more informed, compassionate, and inclusive community that respects and values its Indigenous members.
I think when we're thinking about Indigenous Peoples Day, we tend to have a big magnitude scope of it and make it a big event. We should really look down locally and see how celebrating Indigenous communities can bring new ideology, new hope, new understanding into our communities, whether we're tribal or non-tribal, appreciating Indigenous ideology and indigenous beings, not even just people, but the indigenous beings of the land, can help in the revitalization of that land. And once we start reviving our local communities, our local regions, it's going to have a global impact, especially if we get a united front that can move forward. All it takes is one group to successfully do it, and others will follow. We have yet to see is a group successfully be sustainable, successfully be committed to driving indigeneity. We have people trying and navigating the routes, which is great. We're not going to have a Band-Aid solution. When we take all these solutions together and start chipping away at this totem pole, we're going to get what we carve at the end of the day. And we're carving our past right now. We can't sit around and let people do it. When we celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day, it's a stance and it's an option to move forward, which is what we're doing, addressing climate change and climate justice with indigeneity. So, yeah, I think it has global impacts from local impacts.
Is there anything else that you would want to say for the people about Indigenous Peoples Day?
We need to continue to grow Indigenous Peoples Day, make the circle bigger, make it wider, so that we can join together and fight the good fight together, whether that be poverty or whether that be the drug problem, drug epidemic, or the climate crisis. We need each other.
Yeah, come out to the Wesleyan October 9th. We'll be serving dinner at 5, and the work will start at 6 to 8. We'll have Evan Adams, great speaker. We'll have a great program, and we're excited to come and celebrate Indigenous. You don't have to be Indigenous. Understand that everyone's Indigenous from somewhere. Be proud of that and come recognize.
Thank you for listening to Young and Indigenous. This episode was produced by Haley Garrow, Wakikia Curly Bear, Bella James, Ellie Smith. Additional music credits to Keith Jefferson, Adam Lawrence, and Mark Nichols. And a huge thank you to our funders, the Discern Foundation and the Whatcom Community Foundation. Yay Podcast is a part of Children of the Setting Sun Productions. We are a non-profit based in Bellingham, Washington, on the ancestral homelands of the Nooksack and Lummi people. Haishka for listening.
Hoy!